You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of this shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the third part of What If Naruto Enters Total Drama Island. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Pixel's Fanbook on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. More hours later. Time into the Awake-a-thon, 85 hours, 1 minute, and 16 seconds. A lot had happened during the last few days in this brutal challenge. Duncan had made Harold pee himself with the classic hand in a bowl of water prank, causing the red-haired teen to gasp at this and cover himself. Courtney's strategy of running in place had caused her to be completely dehydrated and collapse onto the floor before she was taken to the infirmary to get her hydration levels back up to standard levels. And the ones who had fallen asleep were beginning to wake up. Noah was one of them as he was having a dream that involved kissing as he was kissing someone in the real world. He stirs awake and sees he was kissing someone's ear, and taking a closer look, he saw that he was kissing Cody's ear, which woke him up and saw this, and they both screamed before running away from one another, totally forgetting that the audience would see this or that someone saw this and grinned. There were only 6 campers left awake. From the Gophers, it was Gwen, Heather, and Trent, and on the base, it was Duncan, Eva, and Naruto. Gwen lets out a long yawn as she looked utterly dead tired. "I'd kill for some coffee right now," she says. And, as if to mess with her, Chris arrives at the campfire pit with a hot piping brew of coffee in hand. "What is the matter with you people?" Chris asks before taking a long sip of his coffee and looking back at the remaining teens. "Come on, just fall asleep already. I'm bored," he says. He didn't really expect them to last over 3 days now, guess he lost that bet. Just then, Gwen crawls up to him and tugs onto his pants. "You've got to hook me up, man. I'll even eat the grinds. Anything that's got caffeine." Gwen begs as she tries and reach for the coffee. Chris takes one more mocking sip from his coffee before tossing away into the woods as a bear comes in and takes it, making Gwen depressed for not going after it. "Alright, you 6 stay with me. And the rest of you," Chris says to the remaining 6 before turning to the rest minus Owen and Courtney. "Go take a shower for heaven's sake. You stink," he says. Harold didn't need to ask twice as he bolted toward the stalls, to go either relieve himself or to go and get cleaned up from the mess he made. The others start moving out as Naruto gently shakes Dawn awake. "Dawn! Dawn! Wakey wakey!" Naruto says, this causing Dawn to stir awake as she opens her eyes. Dawn mutters as she blinks her eyes and sees she wasn't hanging from her bed. Where am I?" she asks. She hears Naruto chuckle as she looks up and sees him looking at her. "You're at the campfire pit, you fell asleep on my lap 2 nights ago. You've been asleep like this time," Naruto says. Dawn looks at him for a bit before her mind processed what he said and realized that she was still sleeping on his lap. She jolts up from it and blushes, embarrassed at what happened. I see. I'm terribly sorry for sleeping onto you," she says, but Naruto just waves her off. "No, it's fine," he says. Dawn looks down at herself and sees that his hoodie was barely on her. Let me just return this to you," Dawn says. She was about to take the hoodie off and hand it back to him, but Naruto holds his hand out. "Nah, you keep it for me until this challenge is over," Naruto says. "Really?" Dawn asks and Naruto nods. Seeing that he was serious, she nods back to him and stands up. "I'll bring it up after the challenge is over," I believe in you to win this. She says as Naruto cracks a fox-like grin and nods. You got it Dadabayo. Naruto says as he brings out the can of Azul Toro. Dawn nods to him and processes leaving the fire pit to her cabin to go and get cleaned up. As she leaves, Naruto quickly punches his legs to get the sensation back to them as he felt they were asleep, and after feeling pins and nails in his feet, he knew they were waking up, so he stands up, nearly falling back down to the ground and clumsily walks over to the others as they sat on the log and wait for Chris to speak. Once he was able to sit down, Chris looks at them. I didn't want to come to this. I said that to Chef Hatchet last night. I said, Chef, I don't want it to come to this. But damn it, these campers are tough. And so, I've come up with the most boring sleep-inducing activity I can find. Chris says. Confessional, Gwen. Oh come on. What now? Gwen asks, throwing her arms in the air before turning back to the camera with a serious expression. Okay, you know what? Bring it on. End confessional. It's time to pull out the big guns. Chris grins as he pulls out an incredibly large red book. The History of Canada. He says in a soft narrator's voice before he opens the book to reveal it was a pop-up book as a pop-up image of a beaver. And this is where I bring out my ace. Naruto quickly says as he brings out the energy drink and opens it before he chugs it down in one go. He finishes it and proves to Chris that there was nothing left by holding it upside down to the open and letting the tiny drops remaining in it sip out as he places the can on the floor. Naruto sits there for a bit, waiting for the caffeine to kick in as Chris begins to read the book. Chapter 1, The Beaver. National Symbol and a DMN Fine Hat. Chris reads, causing the six to groan at the book and at the lame pun. And so, Chris read on, over the long history of Canada in his soft narrator's voice, and it sure did its trick as around the time of him reading, Eva, Heather and Duncan fell asleep. Naruto was the last one left for the base while Gwen and Trent were left for the Gophers, and around 10 minutes for Chris's reading, the caffeine finally kicked in as Naruto's eyes were wide open and he was frantically tapping his foot to the ground while fidgeting a bit. Time skip, 2 hours later. Time into the Awake-a-thon, 87 hours. 2 hours further into the challenge and Chris was still reading the history of Canada to the now 3 remaining campers. Which of course was the precursor of the discussions leading to the War of 1812. Chris narrates as Trent looked blink as his body slumps forward and Gwen quickly notices this. Trent. No. And despite Gwen calling out to him, it wasn't enough as Trent passes out onto the floor and was out cold. And then there were 2. Naruto for the killer base and Gwen for the screaming gophers. Chris kept reading the book and Naruto and amazingly Gwen didn't let up. Chris stops reading and checks his watch for the time. Time for a bathroom break. Any takers? Chris asks and Gwen looks at Naruto. You need to go. Gwen asks but blinks when she saw him tapping his foot on the floor to the point where there was a small imprint of his foot on the ground. No, I'm good. You. Naruto says in a fast hyper pace, it looked like he was getting more fidgety by the minute. Sure. I could go. Gwen says. She struggles to find her footing as her sight was blurry and she was seeing double. She starts to walk while trying to keep her balance when, it happened. She took 3 steps and just as she was about to take the 4th one, Gwen couldn't take it anymore and she loses her balance completely and falls to the ground face first. Chris runs to her to check if she was fine, he rolls Gwen over and see that her face was dirty from the fall and landing but he was that she was snoring. She had passed out. And that's it. Gwen's out cold. Chris announces, the winner of the Awake-a-thon is, Naruto. The killer base wins. He shouts and Naruto jumps from his seat. Yes. Naruto cheers as he throws his fist into the air. Okay, got to go, bye. Naruto shouts as he starts running away from the campfire. Where you going, bro? Chris yells. To the bathroom, then tumitamantlethum one and lastly, to burn off this energy, later. Naruto shouts as he rushed to the stalls to use it before he'd go to the cabins and tell the others they won as they had no elimination to worry about. Unlike the screaming base who did. Later that day, night. The campfire ceremony. Once again, it was time for the campfire ceremony and we see the still exhausted screaming gophers, all sitting on the stumps with the crackling of the fire in front of them. Chris was at his metal barrel, with a plate of 11 marshmallows. 12 gophers would be 11 soon and the 23 campers would be 22 in moments. Screaming gophers, welcome to your first campfire elimination ceremony. You've all cast your votes and made your decision. Chris says, grinning as many of the gophers yawns and rub their eyes, still exhausted and really wanting to go back to bed. These marshmallows, well known as a campfire treat, represent your life here on Total Drama Island. There are only 11 marshmallows here on this plate, and the camper who doesn't receive one must immediately return to the dock of shame, board the boat of losers and leave Total Drama Island. And you can never come back, ever. He says, repeating the very same rules he said to the base on their very first elimination as some of the gophers tenses at that. The first marshmallow goes to Gwen. Chris says. Gwen was sleeping before Trent taps her shoulder, causing her to jolt up and look around. What? Gwen stutters in confusion as she was confused at what was going on before she saw Chris holding out a marshmallow to her and realizes what was happening. Yes. Gwen mutters, she was barely able to stay awake, as she just takes the treat from Chris and eats it before she falls back to sleep. Trent, Izzy, and Tyler. Chris calls out the next three as the mentioned campers sigh in relief at them being safe. They stand up and go to the plate to grab 3 marshmallows. Heather, Lindsay, and Beth. You 3 are safe, for now. Chris says. The first official alliance of the show smile at them being safe as they go and get their marshmallows. The remaining 4 were getting nervous. Noah, Cody, and Lashana. Chris says as the 3 called smile and grabbed their marshmallows. Owen and Justin tense up incredibly as they look at one another before turning to the plate and seeing one final marshmallow there. One of them was about to be safe, while the other one was about to be voted out and leave the competition and never come back, ever. Campers, this is the final marshmallow and there are only 2 campers remaining. Justin, and Owen. Chris says as the 2 campers gulp nervously. Owen dude, you were the first one from your team to pass out, and you stripped NDE and sleepwalked into the woods. The editors are gonna have a field day with your actions in the challenge. Chris says, causing Owen to sheepishly rub the back of his head. And Justin. You were towing the line on where it could be called cheating when you painted your eyelids to make it look like you were awake when you were sleeping the entire time as your teammates fought to keep themselves awake. It was wicked but you only lasted to a full 2 days and a couple of hours before you were outed. Chris says as Justin just nervously smiles. The final marshmallow of the evening goes to. Chris says before pausing as Owen and Justin were getting nervous and scared. Both look at each other before turning back to the soft sugary treat in anticipation of who'd get it. Owen. Whoa. Owen cheers as he rushes to the plate and eats the treat. Justin slumps down in defeat as he was voted out by his team. Sorry dude, but beauty sleep isn't a thing to cheat for. The boat of losers awaits you. Chris says, gesturing to the docks of shame, the same ones Ezekiel walked on a few days ago. Nodding, Justin stands up and walks over to the docks where the boat of losers was waiting for him. He boards it and the boat sets off, with Justin to parts unknown. Back at the campfire, Chris turns to the now 11 campers. To the rest of you. Hope you enjoyed your marshmallows, because you're all safe. For now. Chris says with a smirk before leaving the campfire to turn in for the night as the gophers all did the same, as they really needed sleep. Camp, base cabin boy sighed. It was an hour after the campfire ceremony had happened and most of the campers were sleeping in their cabin, catching up on 3 nights of missed sleep. Well, almost all of them were. Dawn was in her PJs and was walking over to the boys' side of their cabin while holding Naruto's hoodie as it was neatly folded and cleaned. She reaches the door and gently knocks on it. Some moments pass and she hears some. What? Duncan asks, glaring at Dawn for waking him up. Sorry for interrupting your sleep, Duncan. But is Naruto awake? Dawn asks, ignoring his glare as the punk yawns before shaking his head. Nah, the guy's been sleeping since he crashed a few hours ago. Duncan says as he moves out of the way and shows Dawn his bunk where Naruto was sleeping at the bottom bed, completely out cold. Oh, I see. Dawn says. What did you want with Whiskers anyway? Duncan asks. I wanted to return his hoodie to him. He asked me to keep it safe until the challenge was finished, but I fell asleep after I cleaned it. Dawn says. Duncan looks at her before looking down at what she was holding and sees the folded hoodie before he sighs. Just give it back to him tomorrow. I'm sure he won't mind you keeping it for the night. Duncan says. Perhaps. Dawn says before she nods to herself and looks at Duncan, thank you for the idea, Duncan. Enjoy your sleep. She says as Duncan just yawns and nods. Yeah. Whatever, sunchild. Night. Duncan says as he closes the door. Good night. Dawn says before she turns and walks back to her cabin with a mission in mind for tomorrow. To return Naruto's hoodie back to him. It was the next day after the Screaming Gophers campfire ceremony and the mood was moderate at best. The campers sat in the main lodge, eating their breakfast as they were all still feeling the efforts the Awake-a-thon had on them, with most yawning or trying to keep their eyes open, with the two worst ones being Gwen and Duncan, who both looked dead and miserable. There were a few campers missing from this scene. They were Dawn, Naruto, and Harold. Duncan had his head against the table, looking to be resting. Duncan. The juvenile punk groans in irritation as he turns his head to the side and sees Chris walking up to their table with his usual smirk. You look like CRP, dude. What happened? Chris asks. Stuff it, McLean. Duncan says before going back to sleep as Courtney looks at Chris. It was Harold. Courtney says, causing the host to turn to her with a raised eyebrow. Harold was snoring all night, keeping some of us up for most of the night, up until he was thrown out of the cabin. By someone. She says before yawing. Chris ponders on this for a bit before he laughs, finding this funny. Wow. 4 nights with no sleep. How much are you hurting, dude? Chris asks, looking at Duncan, who lifts his head up and glares at him. Wanna find that out? Duncan yells, not really in the mood as he was tired and his mood was declining. The other base hide under their table, not one to be near this hair-trigger Duncan on any day. Chris takes a step back while lifting his arms up. No. It's cool. Chris says, defusing the matter before things got hairy. The door to the main lodge opens and everyone turns to see who enters and sees Harold there, but something was different about him, causing most of the campers to gasp at the sight of him before holding back their laughter, as it wasn't the ginger they were gasping at. They gasped at a crude mustache drawing he had above his lips, with something else on his face. Harold looked mad as he walks into the lodge. As he walks over to his team's table, as soon as he took his seat, the killer base broke out in laughter, much to his confusion, but he was too angry to think about that. Okay, who did it? Harold asks, causing his team to look at him. Did what, dude? Jeff asks, in between his laughs. Who tied me up to a tree in the woods? Harold yells, slamming his hands down on the table. I had to use my mad skills break out of the rope before a bear could get to me. So, who did it? He asks, looking at his team, specifically the guys, to see who was it. That would be me. A slightly exhausted voice spoke, causing everyone to turn to the door and see Naruto and Dawn at the door with the petite girl helping Naruto stand. Hey everyone. Naruto and Dawn are here. Chris says, seeing both Naruto and Dawn arrive at the lodge as Naruto, who was lacking his hoodie, looked slightly exhausted. The killer bass cheer as the two walks into the lodge with some of the gophers clapping along, with Heather glaring at the red-highlighted blonde, still pissed at him for what he did during the last challenge. What are we clapping for? Lindsay asks Beth, confused about why they were clapping. The two reached their table as Naruto sat down on a chair with Dawn next to him, checking over him. Good morning guys. Naruto greets in between yawns before faceplanting onto the table, causing the others to wince at the impact as Dawn helps him up again. Yo, Naruto, you good? DJ asks, concerned as the red-highlighted blonde just looks at him and gives a tired smile. Yeah, totally fine. Just tired, that's all. Naruto says, again in between yawns. He looks over to Harold and grins. Ha. He laughs, causing the ginger to lose it. What? Harold yells, wondering why was everyone laughing at. I see that you haven't washed your face at all. Naruto says, causing the ginger to look at him. What are you talking about? Harold asks, glaring at Naruto as Jeff laughs again. He messed on your face, dude. Jeff says, causing the ginger to look at him and raise an eyebrow. Wondering what was on his face, he grabs a spoon from the table and looks at the back of it, using the reflection to see his face and sees the crude drawing. Whoa, sweet statch. Harold says, admiring the drawing as he thought it looked good on him. I see that you didn't look at your forehead. Naruto says, this causes the others to snicker while Harold looked confused. He looked back at the spoon and takes a closer look at his face. He spots something on his forehead and sees that there was something written on it. What was written was, snoring machine. In big and bold letters with a swirling logo at the end of it. What? This causes Harold to scream as he drops his spoon and the others to start laughing again. It's a medical condition. Gosh. Harold yells before he runs out of the lodge to the communal bathrooms to wash his face. Dawn turns to her friend with a disappointed expression. That wasn't very nice, Naruto. Dawn says, causing Naruto to turn to her. What? The guy had it coming to him for snoring for most of the night, till I threw him out. Naruto says. But still. Dawn says, still having a disappointed expression. While this was happening, over at the Screaming Gophers table, Heather starts speaking with Lindsay and Beth, her two alliance members, regarding the rules for their alliance. Okay, let's go over the rules one more time. Heather says, with the two members looking at her. Number 1, I am the captain of this alliance, so I get to make the rules. Number 2. She says, as she waits for them to answer this as both thought about it for a moment. Breaking the rules can result in getting kicked out of the alliance. Lindsay says with Heather nodding. Good. Number 3, I can borrow any of your stuff without asking, but my stuff is strictly off limits. Heather says. This made Beth and Lindsay look unsure as the blonde one of the three spoke. I don't know about that last rule. Lindsay says, she knew that some of her stuff was expensive and strong to find, so it really was unfair to do that to herself, and Beth agrees by nodding. Heather smiles as she looks at them. That's cool. I can change the rule. Heather says, making the two smile, but she wasn't finished. I can also find someone else to take to the final 3 with me. She says, scaring the two as they quickly shook their heads. Good, first things first, we have to win the next challenge. We can't let those fish heads pull ahead for us. She says. She couldn't let the other team have the numbers advantage. Not this early into the game. Okay campers, listen up. Chris got all of the campers' attention, well, those who were still awake, that is. Your next challenge begins in 10 minutes. And be prepared to bring it. He yells. Duncan's eyes widen in shock as he lifts his head up from the table and looks at the host as he remembers something. Wait, you said that each challenge happens every 3 days. Duncan yells, not liking this at all. Why make another one now when we just had the last one yesterday? He shouts. Chris places his hand on his chin and thinks. Yeah, about that. Since you guys stayed up for more than 3 days, I felt that it'd be fair to take away those days off and have the challenge now just to get some action. You're welcome, by the way. Chris says, smirking as Duncan glares at him. Meet me at the beach in 10 minutes for the challenge. He says as he leaves the lodge, leaving the punk to get angry at the host since he knew he couldn't do anything about it, especially on TV since he could land right back into juvie should he do anything extreme. What do you think this challenge will be? Katie asks as she looks at her team. Whatever it is, can't be as crazy like the last one was. DJ says, he and the rest of the base and gophers leave the lodge to where Chris said the challenge would be as Dawn helps Naruto stand up from his seat and help him walk along the way. Time skip, 10 minutes later. Location, inside a glass cube, the beach. 10 minutes later, all 22 campers made their way to a gym-like arena set up on the beach. There were benches on both sides with the walls of the arena being made from glass as the team's logos were on the walls over the benches. Chris and Chef were there with Chef wearing a referee's uniform and a whistle hanging from his neck. Duncan was the last to arrive at the gym arena as he heads over to the base's bench and falls onto it before sending a quick glare to his team. Wake me up and it'll be the last thing you do. Duncan says, letting his threat hang as he falls asleep on the bench while the others nervously nod and gulp, minus Eva, Country Naruto, and Dawn. Eva wasn't intimidated by his threat while Courtney simply rolls her eyes. The other two were preoccupied. Man, am I tired. Naruto mutters, he was barely standing while Dawn was next to him, making sure that he doesn't fall again. Are you going to be alright, Naruto? Dawn asks, looking at him as he looks down at her and gives her a wobbly smile. Yeah, as long as I catch my second wind, I'll be back to normal. Naruto says, right before his legs give out and he falls face first into the court as Dawn and DJ help him up and take him to their bench to get some rest. Seeing that two of their powerhouses were out, Courtney turns to Harold and glares at him and seeing that this was his fault. This is all your fault, you know. You and your snoring, face. Courtney yells at him, pointing her finger at him. As I said, it's a medical condition. Gosh. Harold yells at her in his typical lingo right as Chef blows his whistle, catching all the campers' attention. He starts walking past the teams, eyeing all of them, and to say the least, he wasn't impressed by most of them. He reaches Chris who was standing next to a pile of red RBB ball. Today's challenge is the classic game of dodgeball. Chris informs everyone, pulling out a red RBB ball from behind as the gophers flinch upon hearing knuckles cracking. They turn and see Eva with a big smirk, cracking her knuckles with the other base grinning as well. Confessional, Eva. Finally. Some real sports action. Eva yells, punching her fist into her palm while smirking. Oh, this is going to be fun. Confessional, Naruto. Dodgeball, one of the most used and painful activities in school. Oh, did this take back me to my elementary and junior high days. Good times, good times. Naruto says, kicking back on the toilet seat as he reminisces back to his childhood days. Oh, the victims and bodies. End confessionals. The first rule of dodgeball is. Chris begins to explain the game, throwing the ball he had up in the air before getting interrupted. Don't talk about dodgeball. Noah says, cutting Chris off with his little with Owen and a few others chuckle in response. Chris just looks at him and smiles as he lowers the ball to the floor and reaches for something in his back pocket. That and if you can dodge a monkey wrench, you can dodge a ball. Chris says as he pulls out a monkey wrench from behind, shocking the campers as he throws it to Noah who had no time to process as what had happened before feeling a heavy impact to his family jewels as he drops to his knees and screams from the pain he got from the hit to the nuts from the wrench while Chris picked up his ball. Now, as I was saying before getting cut off, as Noah poorly demonstrated, if you get hit with a ball. Chris says, he then throws the ball to Courtney, hitting her in the gut. You're out. I hate you. Noah utters, as Owen helps him up to his feet, still clinging to his jewels. Hey! Courtney yells, after regaining her breath from the unexpected hit as she glares at Chris. You can't do that. She yells, throwing the ball to Chris, who easily catches it. If you catch the ball, the thrower gets sent out and the catcher gets to back in another teammate out on the court. Chris explains as he spins the ball onto his finger. Throwing ball. Noah says, rolling his eyes. Gee, another mentally challenging test. He spoke sarcastically. I know, right? Lindsay agrees, not getting Noah's sarcasm as he and Owen look at one another awkwardly. Chris stops his spinning ball and looks at Jeff. Okay Jeff, try to hit me. Chris says as he tosses the ball to Jeff as the party boy catches the ball. Chris then turns to Chef, who had another ball in his hands, and tosses it to Chris. If you're holding a ball, you can use it to deflect a ball that's thrown at you, but if the ball you're holding gets knocked out of your hands upon impact, you're out. He says. Lindsay then starts thinking about the rules. So, what do I do again if the ball comes at me? Lindsay asks, having a strong time understanding the rules of the challenge. At that moment, Jeff chose to throw the ball he had at Chris. You dodge. Chris yells, using his ball to deflect the ball, with the soaring ball hitting Lindsay in the face, making the other campers gasp and wince, along with Chris. Ooh. Chris winces, knowing that had to hurt. You were supposed to dodge. Ow. Lindsay groans as she stands up, holding her forehead. Right. She says, removing her hand from her forehead where a large bump was forming, causing some of her teammates to look on in shock. You have 1 minute until game time. Chris says, as he walks over to a lifeguard-like seat in the middle of the court. You'll all have 5 people on the court each game. And if catch a ball, you can bring in whoever you want into the game. So, get to planning. He says, and the teams began their strategies. Okay, we can't get lazy here. Heather says, looking at her team. The killer base are going to try extra strong to beat us so they can get the numbers advantage. So, who's sitting out for the first round with Sleeping Beauty here? She asks, pointing to Gwen, who yawns and was swaying a bit. Noah started thinking about the situation and knew that he wasn't the most psychic guy on the island, so seeing this as a great opportunity to catch up on some reading, he raises his hand. Alright, I'll do it. As much as I'll hate. Noah says, with hidden sarcasm as he walks over to his team's bench where Gwen was, already sleeping. He turns back to the others, go team and dodge some ball, he says with a smile before sitting on the bench and pulls out a book and starts reading. Over at the killer base's side, they were busy talking. So. Jeff starts as he looks at Eva. We just give all the ball to Eva and let her have it. He says. The others slowly nod, agreeing to the plan as they see Eva ginning like a mad woman with Courtney cutting in. That's a solid idea, seeing as Naruto and Duncan are out of commission. Courtney says, as they turn and saw the two were sleeping on the bench. But we still need people with their own ball and hit some of the gophers. Act as shields for Eva, but also throw your ball if you see a moment to do it. Got it? She asks, looking around as the others including Eva thought over the plan and nod to it. Got it. They say. Round 1. The campers were on the court for the first round. For the killer base up on it, it was DJ, Courtney, Eva, Katie, and Harold. While on the Screaming Gophers team, it was Heather, Lindsay, Owen, Cody, and Tyler. Bring it on, fishes. Heather teases. Otherwise winning this won't be as satisfying as it would be. She says with a smirk. Eva looks at her with a raised eyebrow. Funny, I was just about to say that to you Gophers, seeing as it was your team that sucked in the last challenge. Eva says, smirking as well as Tyler got fired up. Oh, it's so on. Tyler yells. We're going to bring the dinner to the table and then we're going to eat it. He yells, thinking that his smack talking was on point, but it made no sense as the others on his team, and those on the benches were confused by it. What? Bridget turns to Jeff, who shrugs his shoulder. Both didn't get that either. Both teams ready? Chris says as the two teams on the court prepare. Remember, best of 5 games wins. Now. Let's dodge some ball. He yells with referee Chef blowing his whistle, singling the game as their teams. Cheer on. All the rush to the ball on the center line and grab them, 3 each. Tyler smirks as he spins himself around, building momentum before he releases the ball into the air, only for him to completely miscalculate his timing as he was facing his own team when he released the ball as it soars toward Lashana, hitting her square in the face and goes down to the floor. Oh, that'll leave a mark. Chris says, before laughing. Nice going, Jock, for brains. Now let's see if you can hit someone on their team. Heather yells at Tyler before handing him her ball. As this distraction was happening, Eva chose to act as she throws her ball at Tyler, just as he turns and sees it coming toward him at a high speed, a speed that left him with no time as he gets hit in the gut and is sent flying back into the back wall of the court, in which he slides down onto the floor. Ah! Tyler yells, holding his gut in pain before realizing that he was out. Damn it. He moans while Ref Chef blows his whistle. Tyler's out. Chef announces, with the bass cheering while Eva just pats her shoulders. Tyler makes his way to his team bench while holding his gut as Lashana was glaring at him for the hit earlier. Time to unleash my wicked skills. Harold says, with a ball in his hands. Owen looks at him and grins. Oh yeah, bro. Owen says, stepping forward to Harold, bring it on. You asked for it. Harold says before performing an amateur version of the white crane martial arts pose before leaping in the air and throws his ball, only to just spike it off the floor and into the air. The two watch it bounce off the floor a few times before it rolls to Owen's feet as he bends down and picks it up. He smiles before narrowing his eyes at Harold, who starts fleeing while screaming like a girl before he gets hit in the back, causing him to fall to the floor, sliding across it before crashing into the glass wall. Oh. He'll feel that tomorrow. Chris winces as Chef blows his whistle, taking Harold out of the game. Nice wicked skills, dude, ha ha ha. Owen jolly laughs. Katie grabs a ball from the floor and looks at the Gophers to pick her target. And she sees who was, as Lindsay was walking toward her team, holding her ball out. What am I supposed to do with this again? The blonde bombshell asks, still confused about what the rules of the game were, as she didn't see Katie's ball heading toward her with it hitting her square in the face again, knocking her to the floor. Katie high-fives her team while Lindsay picks herself from the ground, holding her new bump. She looks over toward the opposite team's bench and saw Naruto sleeping, and she smiles slightly. This catches the attention of Heather as she narrows her eyes and follows Lindsay's eyesight and saw just who was she looking at. Again, she grits her teeth as she remembers how he folded her plans during the last challenge and she wanted payback, but what and how? While she was distracted, Courtney took the opportunity in throwing her ball at her, which Heather sees coming and has no time to dodge or grab another ball to deflect it, so she braces for the hit only for the ball to be caught by Owen at the last second, as a result eliminating Courtney. Courtney's out. Ref Chef yells, shocking Courtney by this as he turns to the Gophers bench. Someone from the Gophers can come onto the court. He says, looking at who to choose to be sent on. He looks and finds just that person. He points at Noah. String Bean, you're up. He yells, making the person in question looks up at him with a shocked expression. What? Noah utters, thinking that he must have misheard that. He sees that Chef was looking at him and sees that he was serious about this. Sighing at this, Noah puts his bookmark on the page he was on and closes his book before hopping off the bench and walks onto the court to play this game. Eva grabs a ball from the floor and looks at a target to take out and sees Heather out in the open, standing next to Noah. She smirks. Ha, easy target. Eva says before cocking her arm back, ready to prepare to throw her ball. Heather sees her doing this and acts first. She grabs the unsuspecting Noah and puts him in front of her as he was confused by what was going on, only for him to get hit by a ball in the face, which causes him to be freed from Heather's grip and soar across the court to the wall and slams into it, before sliding down to the floor. "Oh, what a takedown!" Chris yells, after seeing the takedown before laughing. Noah's out just as he got in. He says, "Great." Noah says, who was already fed up with this, as he gradually picks himself up from the floor and walks back to the bench. Heather throws a ball at Katie, who deflects it with her ball, but it slips out of her hand and drops to the floor, getting herself out and leaving DJ and Eva to win this. DJ then throws his ball to Cody, who ducked under it but doesn't see the second ball soaring to his face, hitting him square center and taking him out of the game, leaving Owen and Heather to survive. The remaining four stared each other down from their sides, wanting to see who'd make the first move. Heather makes that very move by throwing her ball toward DJ, who deflects it with his and then throws it at the Asian Canadian, who just lets it hit her due to having no defense or time to duck/dodge it. Before DJ could even celebrate this, Owen charges at him and throws his ball with his full strength, which takes DJ by surprise as it hits him in his gut, knocking all the wind out of his lungs as he is sent flying back into the wall on the other side of the gym. He drops to the floor and lets the ball rolls from his body as he clings to his stomach. Eva grits her teeth as she sees that she was the only one remaining in her team. Also sees Owen as a main threat from how he's been doing so far in this game. She picks up a ball and throws it at him as Owen does a surprising dodge but jumps over the ball with it hitting the glass wall. A/N, before you call CRP on how Owen could dodge that, let me remind you how differently built this guy is. He was able to front flip into a kitchen with some distance from him once he smelt something good. He was able to break through a heavy safe door with his strength alone, and he survived a free fall from thousands of feet in the air, lands onto the ground and be perfectly fine from it, take a kick to the nuts and be crushed by a plane. That alone proves he's built differently, just like the others in the show. Owen then picks a ball and throws at Eva. She was forced to duck from it as she sees another ball not too far from her. She looks at Owen, who had another ball in his hand, and reeled his arm back to toss it. She looks back at the ball and rushes for it as Owen throws his ball at her. Eva sees this ball soaring toward her and goes down to the floor, sliding across the court. The ball misses her and she reaches the ball. Still, on the floor, Eva aims and throws it to Owen as it hits him, with Ref Chef blowing his whistle and points to Eva. And the base get the first win. Chris yells as the base cheer while Eva smiles and pumps her fist in the air, celebrating the win. After that, she and Owen return to their team's benches where both teams were discussing their strategy for the next round. "What was that? You all did horrible in that," Heather says, glaring at Cody, Lindsay, and Tyler. She didn't glare at Owen since he did decent in the round. "Hey, don't blame us, they got Eva on their team. She's their toughest one," Cody says, rubbing his face where a large red mark was forming. "I know that. And I also that you suck at this game. Especially you," Heather yells, staring at Tyler. "You couldn't even hit someone on their team," she yells. "Hey, that was a warm-up throw all right," Tyler says, trying to defend himself and is proud as a jock. He turns to everyone. "I can dominate this game, I just need you all to hand me all the ball to me and I'll take them all out. Promise," he says. Heather looks at him with narrow eyes as she thinks over this and decides what to do. "Fine, but you better aim at those fishes, or else your butt will be mine. Got it?" Heather says, letting that threat hang in the air as Tyler nods as he goes to the court to meet up with the rest. Over at the base side, they were talking. "Alright, so far, so good. Do we keep using Eva in every match until we get the win?" Jeff asks, as he got up and stretches, along with Bridget as they were up next. Courtney looks at him and thinks about it. "As much as that strategy is tempting, we can't always use Eva as our ace. We need to SWCH things up so that we're not predictable. We need to SWCH things around this round while keeping the pressure on the other team. So, who's going in? She asks, looking around. Add me. A voice speaks behind Courtney, causing her to gape and jump in fright at the sudden voice. Courtney turns and sees Dawn standing. Add me into this round. She says. Really? Courtney asks, after calming her heart down. Are you sure? She asks as Dawn nods. Yes. Trust me, this will work out. Dawn says. Okay. Courtney says, surprised by Dawn's statement as she, Jeff, Bridget, Sadie, and Eva got on the court while Owen, Beth, LaShanwa, Tyler, and Trent were already on the court. Round 2. Ref Chef looks at the teams and saw most of them were ready as he blows his whistle with the Gophers rushing to the ball, grabbing all of them before any of the ball and handing all of the ball to Tyler, which greatly confused the base. Before any of them could make anything of this, Tyler suddenly started spinning around with his arms out as he throws one of the 4 ball, in the completely wrong direction as it hits Chef in the gut, causing the African-Canadian to glare at him. Tyler continues to spin as he throws another ball with it soaring toward Chris, who ducks at the nick of time. Hey! Watch the face, dude! Chris yells to Tyler, who was still spinning, and throws his third and final ball out as it flies toward his own team, causing all of them to jump from their bench with the ball hits the wall and started ricocheting off the gym's walls, causing all the campers to duck from it as it speeds by or near them. The ball continues to rebound off the walls until it spikes off the ceiling and onto the court and soars toward the base bench. Watch out! DJ yells as he and the others jump from the bench, accidentally leaving Duncan and Naruto to its menace. But fortunately, the red-highlighted blonde wakes up from all the noise and commotion. Huh? Naruto utters as he looks around for what was going on as he sees the ball flying to him. With quick reflexes, he catches the ball before it could even hit him as he was confused. He utters, while looking at the ball. The others looked shocked at seeing this. Whoa, nice catch there, bro. Chris yells as Naruto just looked as confused as he was. Thanks. Naruto utters, before throwing the ball back onto the court as he starts stretching his arms before hopping off the bench and started stretching. Chris turns back to the court and sees a base going to the shocked Tyler, who wasn't even paying attention to what was happening right as he feels something hit him which snaps him back to reality. Tyler utters as he looks around, seeing a ball rolling below him and sees Dawn next to him. Apologizes, but you were wide open. Dawn says with an apologetic expression before she seemingly teleports back to her team. And, Tyler's out. Chris yells with Ref Chef blowing his whistle, singling his elimination as he just lowers his head and makes his way back to his team as Heater glares at him, not just for messing back again but for almost hitting her with that stray ball of his. All of a sudden, Owen gains a tense expression. Great Gatsby, that's it. Owen yells as he charges toward the base, grabbing a ball from Beth. Game on. He yells, before taking quick aim toward Sadie and throwing it, quickly taking her out of the game, but he wasn't done. He snatches a ball from Lashana and takes out Jeff and Bridget with that one ball as he goes toward Trent, with the musician smiling and gladly handing the ball to Big O as he tries to take Dawn out, but as he throws the ball at her, she performs a textbook will pose yoga pose with Eva being behind her and catches Owen's ball with ease. Oh, and after taking out 3 members from the killer base, Eva stops Owen's rampage by taking him out. Chris says, with Owen just calming down and sighing as he makes his way to his bench. The rest of the Gophers grab ball from the floor and started throwing them at Dawn, thinking that if they take her out, it'd be easier to take out Eva, but the problem was that they couldn't land a single hit on her, as Dawn either ducks/dodges their attempts with acts of agility, acrobatics, and flexibility, seemingly making herself as if she was untouchable, all the while Eva advanced, grabbing 2 ball along the way as she throws them toward Trent and Beth, hitting them, and taking them out. Of the game, she picks up 2 more and throws one to Dawn, who bends backward from a toss by Lashana, and she bends back up, catching the ball as they throw at the Sista, making her duck from one but gets hit by the second one, taking her out of the game. And with the unexpected team-up of Dawn and Eva, the base now is 2 for 2 in this challenge. Chris yells, making the base cheer again at the win as Dawn and Eva high-five one another for the win, while over on the Gophers' side, Heather was not happy at what happened as she grits her teeth. Confessional, Heather. Great. Not only do they have the musclehead as their ace, but now Dawn has a hidden talent for this stupid game as well. Heather yells, throwing her hands in the air. Why is this even happening? She yells. End confessional. What is wrong with you people? Heather yells at her team with a furious expression, how can you SCK this bad against them? She yells. Hey, we're trying our best here. Beth says she was sitting next to Lindsay, who was rubbing her sore bruises as Lashana scoffs. Besides, I haven't seen you doing anything in the rounds. All you did was duck under their throws and even use one of us as a shield. Lashana says, sending Heather a dirty glance. Well, at least I lasted longer in a round. Unlike some of us. Heather says, glancing over to Tyler, who sees her and flinches before looking the other way. Whatever you say. Lashana says, rolling her eyes. Over the base side, they were celebrating their victory. Nice work you two. We're in the lead by 1. One more win, and we've now this challenge. Courtney says. That's good. The team turn and sees Naruto walks up to him, his hands behind his head. Why don't I take a crack at this? He asks. Are you sure, Naruto? Courtney asks, looking at him. I mean, you just woke up. She asks as the red highlighted blonde just smiles and waves to her. Nah, it's fine. I got enough rest to play. Naruto says while letting out a little yawn as he was still a bit tired but was ready to play for his team. Okay. Who's going up with him? Courtney asks. Turning back to the team, but they didn't say a thing, they were looking at the benches as someone woke up. I'll join him. A voice spoke behind her as Courtney turns and sees Duncan getting up, rubbing his eyes. Duncan. Courtney says, surprised to see the juvenile punk up after his threat of not waking him. I thought you were still sleeping. She says. Duncan sighs and gets up from the bench and walks over to the. I was, until Whiskers here. Duncan points to Naruto, who was grinning like a fox. Woke me up and said it'd be cool for us to play. While I'd prefer still talking my nap, I got a feeling that Whiskers won't stop bugging me until agreed. He says as he looked like he still wanted to sleep. He looks at the CIT, okay, give me the rundown, where are we standing? He asks, causing Courtney to blink. Oh okay. Courtney stutters, regaining her composure, we're in the lead by 2-0, and this round could be our full victory if we win it. She says. Duncan processes this and nods. Okay, let's try a move I picked up from my first visit to Juvie. Duncan says while looking at the others, it's called, Rush the New Guy. Round 3. On the court, stood Izzy, Owen, Gwen, who was woken up and had to play, much to her dismay, Lindsay, and Heater for the Gophers, while on the base, it was Naruto, Jeff, Duncan, DJ, and Katie. The teams stood ready as Ref Chef blew his whistle and the game started. The Gophers proved to be the quicker ones as they grabbed most of the ball while the base stood ready for them. The Gophers launched their ball at them with them having to duck/move to the side to evade them with the ball only hitting the wall behind them. Katie and DJ catch the ball upon their rebound and throw them to their teammates who grin and lined up for their toss, and all aiming at one specific Gopher. They throw their ball with the RBB death ball flying toward the Gopher they were aiming, Owen. With no way to dodge all the ball heading toward him, he could only get hit by all of them and go down, a bit delirious by the hits as his teammates in worry while the base cheered at the plan working. Oh, and that was a hit. Let's see that on the instant replay. Chris says as an instant play was brought up to the screen and it shows the massacre of Owen with the dodgeballs, rewind that. He says as the footage reminded him of where the impact landed as one of the ball hit Cody across the face, causing some spit to fly out of his mouth. Forward it but in slow-mo. He says as the footage played forward but in slow motion as Owen was seen falling down after the ball hit him. Okay, now rewind, forward, rewind, forward, rewind, forward, rewind, forward. Ha! I love technology. He laughs. The game resumes as the base line up once more and throw their ball to the next gopher. They targeted Izzy, but she grins and performs a dodge nobody was expecting. She performs perfect splits, dodging the ball as they fly over her and hit the wall and them rolling to the ground, as this shocks the base. Seeing this as the perfect chance to take them out, Owen and Heather grab the ball and throw them to the base. The base quickly snap out of their shock and dodge, but some won't be lucky as Katie and DJ were hit, and were out of the round. Whoa! What some sick split skills. Izzy dodges the base's assault, and the Gophers seize from their shock and take out DJ and Katie with the Gophers taking the numbers advantage. Chris says. Damn it. Courtney yells, hitting that. We are so close to ending this. She yells, seeing that their victory was now harder to reach seeing as they were outnumbered. It's cool, we're still in this. Naruto yells, face filled with determination. Courtney looks at him and sees that before gaining determination of her own as she nods and returns focus to the 4 gophers in front of them. The game resumes and the 3 base quickly rush for the ball with Naruto and Duncan being able to grab 2 while the 4 base grabbed the rest of the ball and the team engaged in a battle against one another. Each member of the 2 teams had to do various forms of dodging moves like stepping to the side, bending their bodies, or doing forms of flips as Izzy and Naruto were doing. During this, Owen, Duncan, Courtney, Gwen, and Heather were eliminated out of the round, leaving only Izzy and surprisingly Lindsay for the Gophers while Naruto remained for the base. The blonde in question had to dodge all the throws from Izzy and Gwen for the last few minutes while trying to catch one of the ball to take one of them out. Izzy throws a ball at him, focusing him to fall onto his back as the ball flies past and kip up back to his feet. Naruto then spots a ball next to him and grabs it before throwing it at Izzy, who just bends back and lets the ball fly by as she stands back up straight and looks at the blonde with a massive grin. Oh, Izzy likes a challenge. Izzy yells. She grabs another ball from the floor and throws it at Naruto, who leaps over the ball as he turns and looks at Izzy with a grin of his own. Okay, it's on like Donkey Kong baby. Naruto yells as the 2 start a one-on-one throw fest, trying to hit one another while doing some incredible maneuvers. On the side, Chris pulls out his phone and quickly calls the show's producers and board to talk about what Naruto said. Can he say that? Legally, I mean. Chris asks as they talk about the copyright on that catchphrase. On the court, Naruto ducks under and wick thrown ball from Izzy before jumping up and throwing his ball at the curly ginger-haired team. Izzy sees this and jumps to the side as the ball soars through the air over the ball and lands on her feet. The 2 continue throwing all the ball on the court at a rapid pace, all while performing incredible flip/duck/split/slide/ and deflections as their teams watched on in awe at this sight. Whoa, this is awesome. Jeff utters as Bridget could only nod. Yeah, you can say that again. The surfer says. This goes on for a few more seconds until Naruto slides under a ball from Izzy as he had one in his hand. He looks over at her and saw that she was wide open and smirks. Ha, jackpot. Naruto yells before getting up and throwing a ball at Izzy at top speed. The crazy ginger sees it coming and was prepared for it as she jumps high in the air, and easily evades it, but the same couldn't be said for Lindsay, who was standing behind Izzy, still looking confused. The bombshell looks up upon seeing Izzy jumping up and sees the red RBB ball. Ha! That was what Lindsay could say before getting hit in the face by the ball, forcing her to the floor. CRP. Naruto cusses. He rushes over to the fallen blonde and checks on her. He saw she had her eyes closed. Lindsay. Lindsay. You alright? He yells, worried about her. Lindsay groans a bit as she opens her eyes but. No, Paula, it wasn't me who fed your dress to Betty. Lindsay mutters, completely delirious as she stares into space before passing out there. Oh no, I think she might have a concussion. Naruto says, now really worried about Lindsay's condition. Just then, he feels something hit his back. He turns around and sees Izzy standing behind him with a ball in her hand. Really? Hey, you were wide open. That's the game goes, don't hate on the player. Izzy says. Seeing the logic behind her words, Naruto could only sigh. Point made. That's my loss. Good game. Naruto says he looks back down to Lindsay as he picks her up, bridal style, and looks over at Chris. Hey, Chris. I'm going to take Lindsay over to the medics. I'll be back. He says as. Chris nods and Naruto turns to leave but Courtney stops him. Hey. Where are you going? Courtney yells, he turns and gives her a serious expression. I'm just going to go and get some ice for Lindsay. Nothing more, nothing less. I'll be back. Naruto says and leaves before Courtney could say anything else. Once they left, Chris gains the campers' attention. Well, on that note. The Gophers won the third round. Managing to stay alive in this. Chris announces as the Gophers cheer loudly for the first time since the challenge had started while the base could only groan from the loss. Let's take a 5-minute break and we'll move on to the fourth round. You guys can rest, while I go and make a phone call. He says as he pulls out his phone and quickly dials a number. Yeah, it's me again. Can we show what he said? He asks as he speaks to the producers again. As the campers all decided to use this break to rest their bodies or go back to sleep, one camper slipped out of the gym court and went to where Naruto had walked off to, the medical tent, while another had spotted them sneaking away and narrowed their eyes. With the two blondes. My head. Lindsay mutters. She started to stir from her slumber as she looks around and saw she was in a tent of sorts with various medical equipment. She was wondering what happened, why she had a splitting headache while feeling a chill on her forehead and where was she. Oh, Lindsay, you're awake. She hears a voice speak next to her and turns to see who it was and she was surprised to see Naruto sitting rather close to her, looking relieved, thank goodness. I was worried. He says with a smile. What happened? Lindsay stutters, from how close he was. The game between me and Izzy got too heated and I accidentally hit you in the face with a stray ball. You were knocked out from the hit and I carried you over to the medic. I see. Lindsay says as she starts sitting up from the bed but Naruto stops her. Be careful Lindsay, I put a pack of ice on your forehead. Naruto says. Lindsay blinks before going to her forehead and felt something on it. She takes the item that was there and sees it was a medical ice pack. Naruto gets closer to her and grabs her face to inspect, causing her already present blush to grow and intensify. Looks like the swelling and bruises are fading away nicely. They'd most likely be gone by tonight or tomorrow morning when no show of them being there in the first place. So you don't have to worry. Naruto says, smiling as he takes the ice pack from the bombshell and places it away before standing up and going over to a table and starts doing something there. Thank you. Lindsay says, trying to calm herself down as a thought came into mind. Nate, can I ask you? She asks, making Naruto turn at her. Sure, ask away. And my name is Naruto. Naruto says, correcting her on his name. How do you know these? These medical thingies? Lindsay asks. Naruto blinks at the question before cracking a sheepish grin. Oh, I learned how to do first aid from my grandma. She is one of the top doctors/surgeons in the world, and she taught me the basics when I was younger since I hurt myself on a regular basis. Naruto says, chuckling slightly while rubbing the back of his head. Lindsay blinks and looks at him with a surprised expression. Wow, really? Lindsay asks and Naruto nods. Yeah, most people don't believe it at first due to my appearance and behavior but yeah. I know stuff that most people don't. Trust me, with family and friends like the ones I have, you tend to pick up tricks along the way. Naruto says. He finishes what he was doing by pouring warm water into a cup and walks over to Lindsay with the cup in hand. Here, drink this. It should help with any headaches you might have. Naruto says as he hands her the cup. Lindsay looks at the cup and smiles at him. Thanks, I was having one. Lindsay says before taking the cup and drinking it, only to stop as she had a grossed out expression. Bleck, it's bitter. She says, sticking her tongue out as Naruto chuckles and rubs the back of his head again. Yeah, sorry but it's the best remedy that works. Trust me, I've had it loads of times. Naruto says. Lindsay sighed as she looks back down at the cup and as she loathed what was about to happen, she downs the contents of the cup in one sip before she throws the cup down to the floor and shakes her head. That was so gross. Lindsay. I know. It sucks but it works wonders. My great-grandpa invented it back in Japan during the olden days. People called him the god of sages since he was one of the longest-living sages in history. Naruto says, picking up the cup and placing it next to him. Wow, that's really nice to know. Lindsay says, processing the information before blinking as she was confused about something. What's a sage? She asks. Oh, a sage is someone who has attained wisdom. The term has also been used interchangeably with a good person and a virtuous person. Nowadays, there aren't a lot of sages due to the ever-changing world. They're dying out really. Naruto explains, and Lindsay nods. Oh. Lindsay owes, processing the new knowledge before going to her next question. Hey, can I ask you something else? She says. Sure. Naruto says as Lindsay points to his hair. What type of hair dye did you use to your hair to make those cute red highlights? Lindsay asks. Naruto blinks for a bit before he chuckles. I'm surprised that you're the first one to ask me this on the island since people tend to ask this right as they meet me. But no, I haven't dyed my hair, this is natural. Naruto says. This throws Lindsay off as she stares at him with confusion. Huh? Lindsay utters as Naruto looks at her. I have a genetic mutation called heterochromia of the hair. It's where the growth of hair with two distinct colors onto a person due to a genetic mutation in their DNA. I'm the only one in my family to have this mutation since my dad and grandma are natural blondes, my mom and little sister are red-haired and my grandpa has platinum blonde hair. It sort of makes me unique, along with the birthmarks on my cheeks. You should have seen my parents' faces when they saw the first red strand of hair coming from my head. It was a funny and scary day really. Naruto says, grabbing a few strands of his bangs and looking at the meeting and mixing of colors where the sun-yellow blonde and scarlet red met. Wow, I didn't know there was something like that out there. Lindsay says. Most don't really but it's cool. Naruto says, so, anything else you wanna ask? Yeah, I wanna know. Are you a real rock star? Lindsay asks. Yeah, I am. Not that famous but I am. Naruto says modestly with Lindsay looking at him with wide eyes. That's so cool. Lindsay yells, stars in her hair as she leaps off her bed and sits up, facing him. So, what music do you normally play or you're into? She asks and Naruto looked to take a moment to think about the question. Music I play / into too. That's a tough one. I normally play rock and roll mostly, along with punk and pop, but I can also play blues, country, classical, and freestyle really. That's all I can do with a guitar, that and some other things here and there, but that's all. The same can be said with my music taste, mostly rock, punk, and pop, but one of my bandmates introduced me to hip-hop and R&B, blues, and some country here and there. Naruto says. Lindsay smiled, finding some common things with him. Oh, I love listening to pop. Country too, but I got that from my dad since he's a cowman. Lindsay says. Naruto raises one of his eyebrows at that. Your dad's a cowman? Naruto asks and Lindsay nods. Yeah. My family, the Top family, runs the Top Ranch. It's one of the largest cattle ranches in Canada and in North America. I live there with my parents and my two sisters, older and little. Lindsay says as she remembers her family and smiles, wondering how they were. Naruto looks surprised by this. Wow, that's amazing. Naruto says, finding this information. He did think of something. Wait, if your family owns a ranch, doesn't that mean you're rich? He asks and Lindsay nods. Yeah, we are. Lindsay says, with no hesitation, and Naruto was left confused. So, why did you come to the island? Was it for more money? Fame? Or something else? Naruto asks, wondering just why did she come to the show if money wasn't the reason. Oh, yeah. I'm not here for the money. My family is well sustained really, so money isn't a big thing for me. I actually came here to get away from home. Lindsay says, making Naruto look at her with a surprised look. You did? Naruto asks, and Lindsay just sighs as she nods and lays down on the bed. Yeah, back home, I'm popular with boys and not a good way. Ever since I entered PBRTY back in middle school, my body developed faster than most of the girls back in my town, and in less than a year, I had a figure that beat all of the other girls in my school, which made most of the high school girls to die for. And that made all the girls extremely jealous, to the point where I got bullied big time, and the fact that my family's rich doesn't help at all. Lindsay says as she looks up at the tent. Her eyes became misty. The girls did things to make my life a living hell. They put stuff into my locker, threw some of my things into the toilet, wrote names on my desk, and spread rumors that I slept with some of the teachers, which made the boys think they could ask me to have sex with them or even date them. This kept going on for years, and it kept getting worse as time went on and my figure got more developed. It actually made me hate myself and my body for it, and for a long time. She says as a few tears begin to fall from her eyes, remembering all the things that happened to her. To this day, she still had episodes of mental breakdowns and nightmares of the torment she endured. Naruto sat there in shock, not expecting to hear just inhumane acts done upon someone who didn't ask or had done anything to provoke such acts, all from spiteful people. He felt terrible for it. Oh, man, Lindsay. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Naruto says as Lindsay just waves her hand to him and smiles. It's fine, I've been going to therapy for the last 2 years. I started loving myself again. Lindsay says, wiping her tears away and looking a bit better. That's nice of Lindsay. Naruto says before he sighs and slumps back into his seat. But if I had to be honest here, we're sort of the same, you and I. I also came here for different reasons. Not for the money, and I honestly don't care about fame. I came here because I wanted to get away from my life back home. There was too much drama and beef to deal with that I couldn't take anymore and needed a break from it all. So, my mom showed the news about the show and gave it a try, and I'm here. He says, making Lindsay look at him. Really? Lindsay asks and Naruto just nods, looking rather sad for some reason. Yeah. I just wanted to get away from them. Naruto says, but had a tone of venom at the last part. He clenches his fist as his bangs shadow his eyes. Lindsay was taken back by this, having not expected to hear that from a chill guy like Naruto. Why? What happened back there? Lindsay asks, but Naruto doesn't immediately respond to her, as he was still thinking about whatever he was thinking about, and she sees this. Naruto. She calls to him and he snaps out of his thought process. Huh? Naruto utters, looking at her. I was asking you, what happened back at your home? Lindsay asks, Naruto just sighs. I don't want to talk about it. Naruto just says and looks away from her, not wanting to even answer or continue this part of the conversation. Lindsay saw this and known not to push it. Oh, I see. Lindsay says as she looks at the tent ceiling and the two sit/lay there in silence. After a bit, Lindsay starts giggling a little, causing Naruto to look at her with a raised eyebrow. I guess, we both wanted breaks from our normal lives. Seeing that we had different reasons to come onto the show. Kinda funny if you think about it. She says. Naruto thought about it and couldn't help but see the similarity in both their reasons as he chuckles a little. Yeah, funny isn't it? Naruto says. Lindsay then thought about something else and. So, just asking, if you were to win the show and the money. What would you do with it? Don't know. Maybe put it down for my college funds and my little sister. Help my parents even. I know the conversation from the Canadian dollar to the US would SCK a bit, but the money would help a bit. Naruto says. And you? What would you do if you won? He asks, and Lindsay took the moment to think about what she'd do if she won the money. I don't know. Maybe buy some new clothes, and put some of them down for a car. Or, go on a European tour. Lindsay says. Really? Naruto asks, interested in this. Yeah, I want to Paris. See the sights, eat the food, and learn about the culture there. And, look at the fashion there too. Lindsay says, looking happy as she envisions that dream. Ha, now I see. But that's a nice dream to have, Lindsay. Naruto says as he looks up to the ceiling. Me, I have this big dream. I want to play at a concert in front of a crowd that's the size of the live performance Queen had in the famous 1986 Live Aid concert. He says, thinking about that dream and promise he made to them after he left. Wow, that's a big dream to have. Lindsay says, surprised by this. Before any of them could say anything else, a voice cries out to the male blonde. Naruto. The two turn and see Courtney running toward the tent. Courtney. What's going on? Why do you look like something happened? Naruto asks, wondering what was going on as the CIT enters the tent and rushes to him. We're in deep CRP right now. We're tied. Courtney yells, grabbing onto his wrist as Naruto's eyes widen in shock. What? Naruto yells, shooting up from his seat in shock. What happened while he was away? He wanted to know what happened while he was away. What happened? He asks. Chris resumed the game, and while we dominated the rounds, the Gophers managed to bounce back and won the third and fourth rounds. Courtney says. How? Naruto asks, wondering what had happened while he was away. We can explain more to you when we get back to the gym. Courtney says, as she starts pulling him with her to leave. Come on, the others are waiting for us. She yells. Okay. I understand. Naruto says, and the two start running out of the tent to the gym, but the red/blonde stops as he turns around and looks at Lindsay while giving her an apologetic expression. Sorry Lindsay, I got to go. I'll talk more with you later. He yells as he runs out of the tent with Courtney. Lindsay just remains on the bed and waves him, goodbye. Okay. Bye. Lindsay yells. She sits up from the bed and stretches her arms over her head, leaning her chest forward while doing this as she doesn't notice someone was watching her. What were you two doing? Lindsay hears a voice speak at the left side of the tent and sees Heather entering it, with her arms crossed while sporting a frown as she glares at her. Oh, hi Heather. What are you doing here? Lindsay asks, ignorant of the glare she was getting. I came to look for you, but I see you two doing something. What were you doing? Heather asks. Lindsay places her finger to her chin and thinks. Oh, we were just talking really. Lindsay says as Heather just looks at her. Really? Heather asks and Lindsay nods. Yeah. Lindsay says. Heather just looks at her for a bit. Fine. Heather says, come on, let's go. We have a game to win, she says, and Lindsay nods, hops off the bed, and walks out of the tent with Heather following her, narrowing her eyes at the blonde one. Confessional, Heather. Okay, I heard all what they said, and while I don't normally care what they said, I did care about what the whisker-faced idiot said. He's not here for the money, but something happened to him. Now that's good ammo to use against him. I just have to figure out a way to force whatever he's hiding out and I can use it against him. Heather says, as she starts thinking about how to do with this new information. End confessional. Back at the gym. The two base members return to the gym and Naruto sees the Gophers patting Owen on the back while the big guy smiles. He turns to his team and sees they were drained from their previous mood and looked worn out. Guys, I found him. Courtney yells as they reach the bench. What happened to you guys? Naruto asks, seeing Eva rubbing her midsection with a pained expression. Owen. That's what happened. Duncan mutters, loud enough for everyone to hear. Huh? Naruto utters, with a raised eyebrow. How? He asks. He suddenly turned into a monster and took most of us out in the third round. When the fourth started, we tried using Rush the new guy on him, but his teammates took the hit for him and he took most of us out. Dawn and Eva put up a good fight, but Cody took Dawn out with a weird ball and Owen took Eva out with his wicked strength. Jeff says, rubbing his back, at the spot where he got hit by Owen, the guy's too strong. He says. Oh, man, I'm sorry I wasn't here to help out. Naruto says, feeling bad for leaving his teammates at the mercy of Owen and the Gophers. Dawn gets up from the bench and walks over to him. It's not your fault. There was no way for you to know what would happen once you left. Dawn says, placing her hand on his arm, due to the height difference between them. So, what are we going to do now? Courtney asks, hoping to hear a game plan. We give up, Princess. What else could we do? Duncan says, sitting on the bench and looking up to the sky, ready to call it there. And frankly, so did the others. Naruto sees this and knew he had to rally them up. No, we fight. We fight, we're tied up, right? That means we've still got one shot, one opportunity, to seize this challenge, and get closer to that $100 grand. Would you want to capture it, or simply give up and let it slip and regret it for the rest of your life? Naruto asks. Many of the base look at him and at each other at what he said while one of them frowns in thought, thinking about what he said. Was that Eminem? DJ asks, making everyone look at him in shock before going back to Naruto, who nods with a straight face and points to the Jamaican team. Yes, it was, thank you for noticing that. Naruto says before looking back to the others. My point is, we shouldn't give up just because the other team caught up. We still have this chance to clutch and win this. I don't know much about sports, but I think we're in overtime and it's time for us to go all out. So, you with me in this or what? He asks, holding out his fist to them. The base look at one another, thinking strong about Naruto's speech as Eva just shakes her head and stands up, holding her midsection while walking toward the red-haired / blonde. You know, I'm game. We can't let the Gophers win this. It'd look bad on my part. Eva says as she smiles and places her fist next to his. Jeff hops off the bench and walks over to the two. I'm in this for sure. We're going to wreck those Gophers into next week. Jeff says, placing his fist into the pile. Bridget and DJ look at one another before smiling as they hop off the bench and go over to the middle. I'm in. Bridget says, putting her fist. Y'all, I got your back. DJ says as he places his fist into the pile. I'm in. Harold says, joining in this huddle as Katie and Sadie join as well. We're in this too. The twins yelled, adding their fists into the huddle. I'll follow your lead in this, Naruto. Dawn says. Me too. Courtney says, adding her fist to the others. The rest turn to the only remaining person left, Duncan, who was still sitting on the bench, looking at the sky before kicking up from the bench and walking over to them. Ah, what the hell, like there isn't else better to do. I'll ride with you on this Whiskers, Duncan says, smirking as he adds his fist into. Okay, since we're all in this together. Let's call it on 3. 1, 2, 3. Naruto yells. Killer base. All of the base yell, throwing their hands into the air before huddling back together to discuss the plan. So, anyone got a game plan? Courtney asks, hoping that one had one in mind, and fortunate, one did. I've got an idea. Naruto says as he starts telling his plan the team. Round 5. The teams meet on the court for the final time of the day as Gophers had Owen, Izzy, Gwen, and Heather on the court while the base had Naruto, Duncan, Dawn, Eva, and Sadie. Naruto had tied his hoodie around his waist as he and the others stood ready for the game. Heather saw this and decided to throw their game off with some trash talking. Face it, fishes, you can't win this. Not when we have Owen on our side. So, you might as well just give up now and hand us the win, Heather says, confidently as Naruto chuckles and looks at her with a grin. Sorry Heather, but I can't let that happen. Naruto says. Oh, there are a few things you don't have that we do. He says, and Heather raises her eyebrow. And what's that? Heather asks. Naruto smiles as he goes to his pockets and pulls out something. We have Eva, one baddest chick I've met. Duncan, one tough SOB on the island, Dawn, our little teleporter, Sadie, one of our nicest teammates and a cool friend, while we've got more awesome people on the bench, waiting and ready to do their part. And there's me. A wild card and a sneaky fox who never backs down from everything, even when things look blank for him. That's who I am and that's my way of living. Naruto says as his teammates smile and nod to him, showing respect for his compliments while one person in the gym's eyes widen in shock at hearing what he said. He had a black bandana in his hands and wraps it around his forehead before tying it to his forehead. So, you think you can beat that team up? He asks, dropping his grin and having a serious expression. We'll see. Heather says, getting ready herself for this game. Okay campers, we're in the last round of Dodgeball. Bring it if you want to win. Chris shouts with Ref Chef blowing the final whistle of the day as the final round commences. The Gophers were at the immediate offense as 3 grab most of the ball, forcing the base to go to the defense. That's it, people. Fast hands, fast feet. Heather says, seeing her team work as they hand 2 ball over to Owen who smirks at the base, but the base weren't intimidated by this and stood ready. Owen throws his ball at the base with them leaping over / or moving out of the way and allowing the ball hit the back wall before picking them up and throwing them at the Gophers who dodged. This routine went on for minutes, dodging, grabbing, throwing, repeating. With every now and there, one person from each team getting eliminated or switched out with another teammate, this round cutting close. Knock them dead out there. Rah, rah, rah. Noah cheers on, not even taking his eyes off his book, and if he had, he would have seen the ball that was soaring to him, coming, but he didn't and took the hit to the face, sending him stumbling off the bench as the Gophers with him smirk at this sight. You're right, sports aren't your thing. Heather says. Bridget got sent out and switches with Sadie who was eager to play, only for her to be hit by a ball thrown by Cody and take her out, leaving the base as she walks off the field. The previous routine continued with teammates getting switched out. This continues for several more minutes until there were only 3 people left on the court. For the Gophers, it was Owen and Izzy who were smirking at their remaining opponent. The lone base, Naruto. Naruto was slightly panting, looking at the 2 in front of him as the Gophers cheered on their teammates, feeling that this was their win. While the base were tense at this. Izzy wants Blondie. Izzy yells with her crazed grin while Naruto's eyes started to twitch. Are you talking to me? Naruto asks, with a stained smile. See. Izzy nods. Are you talking to me? Naruto asks, again, this time a dark aura begins to appear around him. Yes. Izzy says. Are you talking to me? Naruto asks one last time, his hair beginning to sway on itself as his eyes become shadowed by his bangs. Yes. Izzy shouts, her deranged grin appearing on her face. Dawn's senses alter her as she looks at Naruto and her eyes widen. Oh no. Dawn utters, altering the others near her. What? What's wrong? DJ asks. Naruto's aura, it shifted suddenly when Izzy called him Blondie. Dawn says as she points to Naruto and everyone sees his eyes turning completely white while gaining a demonic grin. He's angry. She mutters as she moves behind DJ and hides there. Naruto just looks up at the two gophers and tilts his head to the side as he smiles right before cocking his arm back. Don't call me Blondie. That was all Naruto shouts as he throws the ball at Izzy with such strength that it soars through the air at high speeds the crazy red-haired couldn't react to as she gets hit by the ball and gets sent flying back into the glass wall and her body impacts into, causing a crack to appear when she hit. Izzy's body slides off the wall and onto the floor where she was holding her stomach in pain. This shuts the gophers up as they were in shock and so was the base right before they started cheering. Whoa, what a throw. Chris yells at the unexpected turn of events. Naruto turns to his next victim. Oh, and Naruto sings out, in a too sweet tone, which sent chills down the big guy's spine. Simon dude. Show some mercy here. Owen stutters, taking a few steps back as Naruto darkly chuckles and looks at him. Sorry, all out of mercy. Naruto says as he grabs another ball and starts spinning it on his finger like a basketball. He continues to spin the dodgeball while hitting it, increasing its speed in the spin. He looks over at Owen who was nervous and gulps as Naruto throws the ball up in the air while it spun in the air, and right when it falls down to the floor, Naruto punches it. Rasen shuriken. He yells as the ball shoots through the air and to Owen who gets ready to catch it, the ball collides with him, sending him back into the wall where he actually crashed through it. The teams look at him, in anticipation to see if Owen caught the ball or not. The big guy groans and relaxes his body as the ball rolls off his body and onto the sand. Owen's out. Naruto wins it for the killer base again. Chris yells and the base cheers. Woo! The base cheer as they go to Naruto while the gophers groan at their second loss in a row. While the base goes to Naruto and give their thanks but he blinks. Huh? Naruto utters as he looks around, looking confused. What happened? What do you mean dude? You went wild after Izzy called you Blondie. Jeff explains. Naruto blinks as he processes that. Oh, she called me that. Naruto says, looking into space. Yeah. Duncan says as he sees Naruto spacing out, are you okay? And nothing's wrong. Naruto says, rubbing the back of his head. Confessional, Naruto. Yeah, there's something you should know anything, my family. See, my mom and little sister have red hair and whenever someone makes fun of it or calls them and I'm sorry Kachan and Imato, tomato, they go into a frenzy. And the same can be said for me with my hair. I think it's a family trait or something. Naruto says. End confessional. The base leave the gym, going to celebrate the win while the gophers were deflated by the loss as Chris walks up to them. Gophers, what happened? You were making a comeback. Chris says as the teens slump in defeat as Noah shrugs his shoulders. I don't know. The teamwork on this team is lacking. Noah says, unknowingly pissing off his teammates. Oh shut it, Noah. Gwen says as she glares at him before getting up from the bench and walks away. Yeah, for once I agree with Goth Girl. Heather says as she and the girls walk away, leaving the guys to look at Noah. Geez, touchy much. Noah says as the guys looks at him. Glaring at him. What? Later that day, night. The campfire ceremony. Once again, it was time for the campfire ceremony and we see the screaming gophers, all sitting on the stumps with the crackling of the fire in front of them. Chris was in front of them, with a plate of 10 marshmallows. Screaming Gophers, welcome back to the campfire elimination ceremony. You've already placed your votes and made your decision. Chris says, grinning as many of the Gophers looked rather nervous about the ceremony while Noah looked confident for some reason. When I call out your name, come pick up a marshmallow. Owen. Chris says, making the large teen leap from his log as he throws his arms up in the air and walks over to take his marshmallow and eats it. Gwen, Cody. Chris calls out the two as the mentioned campers sigh in relief at them being safe. They stand up and go to the plate to grab their marshmallows. Trent, Heather. Chris says. The mentioned two go and get their marshmallows and stand with the other safe campers while the remaining 5 were getting nervous. Izzy, Lindsay, and Lashana. Chris says as the 3 called smile and grabbed their marshmallows while Tyler and Noah were left. Tyler was getting really nervous while Noah was just smirking, thinking he was safe. And the final marshmallow of the evening goes to. Chris says before pausing as Tyler started to shake with nervous and Noah was still smirking. Tyler. Chris says, making the jock let out a massive sigh of relief as he rushes to the plate where the last marshmallow was while Noah looked shocked. What, are you kidding me? Noah yells, in shock at this, not believing this to be true. Sorry dude, but you were a team player, when you're in a team that requires you to be one. The boat of losers is that way. Chris says, gesturing to the docks of shame as Noah just scoffs and stands up. Fine, see if I care. Noah yells before turning to his now former teammates, good luck, because you voted out. He yells at them, only for them to throw their marshmallows at him. You need to learn something called, respect Tucky. Lashana says and the others agreed with her. As Noah looks at them before turning his head with his nose up in the air. Whatever, I'm so out of here. Noah says as he leaves the campfire and walks over to the dock of shame. Alright, so that wasn't the most dramatic campfire ceremony ever. But I still get paid. Bonus. As to the rest of you, you can go back to your cabins and rest. I'll be seeing you all soon. He says and leaves, to rest in his accommodations. With pretty much nothing else left to do for the night, the screaming Gophers walk away from the campfire area and to the cabins where they want to go and rest up for the night after the day's exhausting. As they walk, one of them hears some noise coming from the main lounge. Curious about what could it be, they walk over to the main lodge building and follow where the noise was coming from and found, that at the back of the lodge by the stairs to the beach, Naruto was there sitting on the stairs looking at the lake while playing his guitar as he sings. We're driving through rain. Running through sun and looking at plains. We're cruising through towns. Moving all around but you stay the same. We like to run away. We're ditching all our pain. And living for today we're driving so fast. Wanna make it last, we'll do it our way. Naruto looks up to the night sky, toward the moon in its waxing gibbous, and continues singing. And I feel good at night. Full moon, the only light. You make me feel like I'm doing alright. I feel good inside, maybe a little high. You make me feel like everything will be alright. This person was taken back by his singing, since they knew he was a rocker but had a golden voice. Something did feel strange about him and the song he was still singing. With that feeling and feeling that they had to leave before they were stopped, they left and went back to their cabin, thinking things over from the day's events, all leading back to Naruto. Confessional. Something that Naruto said during the game, I've only heard that somewhere from someone back in my childhood days. The person says, in the confessional as they frown. Just who is Naruto? 3 days passed at Camp Wawanaka and the campers were finally able to get much needed rest and relaxation, especially Gwen, Duncan, and Naruto as they enjoyed their much needed sleep time. It was in the morning and inside the Gopher's cabin by the girl's side, Gwen was in her bunk bed, having a pleasant dream. Okay, this is so, way beyond bad. And her dream was interrupted by a yell. Gwen gradually opens her eyes and sits up from her bed to see just what the issue was. She sees Lindsay on her bed with a large amount of makeup on it and had a worried/horrified expression. Okay, what seems to be the problem here? Gwen asks, a bit annoyed that she was woken up. Lindsay hears her and turns to her. I'm all out of fake tan lotion already. Lindsay says while holding out an empty bottle of tan lotion. Gwen blinks at this as she yawns and rubs her eyes, from both annoyance and from slight exhaustion. This was the issue that made her wake up. Whoa. That's so tragic, Lindsay. Gwen says as she starts stretching her arms. Now, I actually have to suntan for real. Lindsay says as she drops the empty bottle of lotion to the floor and looks up at the bed above her in frustration. Do you know how shriveled and wrinkly that can make your skin? She asks, missing Gwen's non-caring expression as she roughly fixes her hair. No clue. Gwen says, sarcastically. Unfortunately, Lindsay didn't hear the sarcasm and the bombshell blonde assumed that she agreed with her as she looks at her and saw the condition of her skin. Oh, you do. Your skin's all pale and white. Lindsay says. She walks up to the goth and scans the goth's appearance. If you want, I can help you with your skin and make it less shriveled. She suggests with a smile as Gwen just looks at her with a raised eyebrow. Thanks. Gwen says, not knowing if she should be thankful for the suggestion or insulted by Lindsay's previous remark about her skin. Just then, a loud siren went off from the PA system, causing the campers who were still asleep to wake up with a jolt while the ones who were awakened cringed at the siren as it goes away and Chris's voice spoke over it. Alright campers, enough beauty sleep. Time to show us what you're made of. Come directly to south of the camp next to the main lodge of your next challenge. Great. Gwen mutters with a sigh, so much of going back to sleep. She hops out of her bed and goes over to her drawer to get changed and get for the day and for whatever challenge Chris had in mind for them. Time skip, 15 minutes later. Location, in a clearing with a large theater. The campers were sitting on belchers in front of a stage, one that they'd never seen on the island before as they wait for Chris to arrive. Are we going to see a musical? Lindsay asks with her usual ditzy smile on her face. Oh, I just love musicals with all the singing and dancing. She says as Beth looks at her with a confused expression. But Lindsay, that's literally what a musical is. Beth says. Lindsay blinks as she thinks for a bit before an embarrassed expression appears on her face. Oh, right. Sorry. Lindsay says, realizing that the farm girl was right. Gwen was walking up to her team's belcher while looking for a spot to sit. Hey, Gwen. Gwen hears Trent yell and she turns to him and saw him waving at her, with a free spot next to him. Saved you a seat. He says, patting the spot. Gwen smiles and walks over to Trent as she takes a seat on the free spot. Thanks. Gwen says, smiling at him while Trent returns the smile. Heather, who was above and not too far from them, looks at them with narrow eyes as she sees Trent kicking his feet back and placing his hands behind his head as he relaxes on the belcher while Cody, who the two aren't aware of, took a seat next to Trent and tried to copy the musician's actions in an attempt to impress Gwen, but his actions caused him to fall into the space between the belcher and get stuck, but he remained cool. Her attention swiftly shifted to Lindsay, who she sees waving her hand at someone. Turning to the direction in which Lindsay was waving, she sees Naruto sitting next to Dawn, Duncan, and Eva as he waves back at her with a wink. Getting annoyed by this, Heather glares at Lindsay, who sees the glare and sends her an apologetic look before Asian Canadian sharply turns her head away and whacks the blonde in the face with her ponytail. This causes Lindsay to GG and pull out a string of hair from her mouth. Eventually, Chris arrives as he walks onto the stage. Welcome campers to our brand new deluxe, state-of-the-art, amphitheater. Chris says. This causes some of the campers to raise their eyebrows as they looked at the amphitheater and saw the patchwork on the curtains, the rickety floorboards with some nails sticking out from some, and the lights looked sketchy since they were being held up by ropes. Yeah, brand new, state of the art, my foot. Okay, this week's challenge is a summer camp favorite, a talent show. He yells, causing the campers to be intrigued by this challenge while some were excited. Yes. Awesome. Owen yells, jumping up from his seat on the belcher and pumping his fist. Oh. Having a rush of cringy summer camp flashbacks I've seen before. Make it stop. Naruto groans out, as he rubs his head as if he was experiencing a rush of ice cream brain freeze before he leans back onto his seat and grins, causing some of the campers to chuckle/giggle at his antics. Well, you better pray that you don't end up as one of them, Naruto. Chris says with a smirk before he looks at the rest of the teams. Each team has 8 hours to pick their 3 most talented camper. Each camper will represent their team at the show tonight. Sing, dance, juggle, anything goes. As long as it's legal. He says, while looking at Duncan, giving a look that said, I'm watching you. This causes Duncan to snap his fingers in disappointment as if he had plans already that were now ruined by this. You'll be judged by our resident talent scout. Former DJ, VJ, and rap legend, Grand MSTR Chef. Who will show his approval of your act, via the chef-o-meter. He says, pointing to the air above his head, and a visual of a wooden spoon with a rating of 10 bars appears on screen for the viewers to see while the campers see the meter on a projection on the stage. The team that loses, will send a camper home, tonight. So, break a leg. Your 8 hours starts, now. He yells as he walks away from the stage. The 2 teams got off the belchers and got to work selecting their 3 acts. But there was one little thing they were forgetting. A little help here? Cody asks, still stuck in the spaces of the belcher. With the screaming gophers. Time left until showtime, 7:58. The gophers were at their cabin, to do the auditions for the challenge. Heather walks up to the front while holding a clipboard as she blows a whistle, gaining the rest of the gophers' attention. Okay, I'm the team captain. So, here's how it's going to work. Heather says, standing in front of the team as she was about to begin the auditions when Gwen, who was leaning against the railing and was holding a black book in her hand, stops her. Wait, who said you were team captain? Gwen asks, not aware of how, or when did this go down, and she was sure the others didn't know too thanks to their confused expression upon hearing Heather claim she was the captain. She did, just now. Lindsay says. Lindsay, Beth, and I took a vote and I won. Heather says with a grin as Gwen rolls her eyes. Threatening them to vote for you or else they'd be kicked out of your so-called alliance isn't exactly democratic. Gwen says, crossing her arms while looking annoyed. She was getting sick and tired of how Heather was acting like there was no alliance for the last 2 challenges when everyone on the island knew for it from the minute it started back at the Awake-a-thon challenge. She really didn't make that discreet. Hey. Gwen turns and sees Trent next to her, with his guitar case strapped over his back as he presents to her a brown muffin. Snagged you a muffin, since I didn't see you at the cafeteria in the morning and thought you were hungry. He whispers as Gwen smiles. Thanks. Gwen whispers back to him while she takes the muffin. Heather sees this and narrows her eyes before she relaxes and smiles. Trent, you're cool with me leading this project, aren't you? Heather asks, with the sweetest tone she could muster as Trent just shrugs his shoulders. Sure, go for it. Trent says, his tone showing that he honestly didn't care about it as Heather smiles. Great. Heather says before she looks over at her 2 alliance members, Lindsay, Beth, and I are going to be the judges. She says, with Lindsay and Beth clapping their hands ecstatically at the job offer while Gwen just groans. Whatever. Gwen says before she sits down on the stairs for the cabin and starts eating her muffin, ready to see just what talents her teammates really have. With the killer bass. Time left, till showtime, 7:56. The bass were having their own auditions behind their cabin as they were busy watching Katie and Sadie performing what they called a dance routine, that is, if it can really be called a routine since the two looked like they were just randomly dancing next to each other. Eventually, the two finish off their routine with a pose and splits, with their teammates having a rather different yet similar reaction to it. Well? Katie asks as DJ goes up to them and helps them back to their feet. What do you think? Sadie finishes her best friend's question as the two lean closer to their teammates, waiting for their take on their reaction. That was nice, girls. Courtney says as the two beam from joy at that, but the CIT wasn't finished. But it looked more like dancing in the mirror than actually dancing. She says, as the two pout and were down by that as they nod and return back to their spots they were previously sitting. Courtney then stands up and looks at the others. Okay, who's next? We need a solid act for this if we want to win. She says. Well, at least we know we've got one act. Right, Whiskers? Duncan asks, turning to his left. The others follow and see Naruto sitting on a log, staring at the sky, clearly in deep thought as. Of course, he's one of the acts, that is if he's okay with doing it. Courtney says as she turns to him. Are you okay with doing it? She asks. She didn't want to be pushy and force him into doing it if he didn't want it. But she noticed he wasn't paying any attention to any of them and she was getting a bit concerned. She walks over to him and taps his shoulder. Naruto, are you okay? She asks, and her question and action cause him to snap out of it as he blinks for a bit. Huh? Naruto utters as he blinks and looks around and sees Courtney looking at him. You said something? He asks. We were asking if you were okay with performing in tonight's contest. But you were spacing out a bit. Are you okay? Courtney asks as Naruto blinks a bit before he chuckles and rubs the back of his head. Why, yeah, I'm fine. I was thinking about something. And yeah, I'm always down to rock out. Naruto says, causing the team to sigh in relief that he'd do it. He stands up from the log and he looks at the team with a serious expression. Just keep in mind, the other team only has a guitarist, acoustic mind you. I'm not saying that our styles and song could clash or anything, but they might use him in either the second or last act. So, to beat that, you have to save me as the last act. My style fits that best, and that way, I can have a feeling for the crowd while backstage and what Trent could play and see if our songs do clash by the off chance. He says as the others thought about his words and felt like they were true. The dude's got a point. Trent will be playing his guitar and go acoustic if the Gophers are smart about it. Naruto just needs to pick a song and rock out. Jeff says. He then turns to Naruto, got any ideas for your song, dude? He asks. Naruto places his fingers on his chin and closes his eyes and starts thinking about what song to do. Either a cover of an existing song or one of his own. I might have a few ideas in mind. But if I do use one of them, I'll need something for this to work. Naruto says, if he was going to do this, he'll need something important for this to work properly. He opens his eyes and looks back at his team and flashes a grin. Trust me guys, what I'm going to pick will burn the roof off this place. We've got this. He says, flashing them a rock-on gesture as the guys smirk. Naruto then turns around and processes leaving for the cabin to go and get his guitar and amp to go and practice. Oh, he's so got this. Duncan says with a smirk, getting a feeling that Naruto would rock this joint, and some of the others had faith in him as well, but Dawn wasn't. As she was looking at Naruto with a concerned look, she saw a massive change in his aura and it had her worried. Courtney then looks back to the others and claps her hands, gaining their attention. Okay, well, we've got one act locked in. Anyone else wanna have a go? Courtney says. As Naruto walks to the cabin to grab his stuff, his grin drops and he gains a rather depressed frown on his face while his eyes slightly dim of light a bit. What was the reasoning behind this? With the Gophers, at their cabin. Time, till showtime, 7:34. The Gophers were watching Owen, who was about to do his audition, as he pulls out a large bottle of soda and starts chugging it go in one go, as the other looked on in interest at what he was going to do. "Are you going to audition?" Trent asks Gwen as Heather was talking with Lindsay and Beth. "Doubtful," Gwen says, shrugging her shoulders. She then gains a thought and turns to him. "You should be in this though. I mean, if the other team is going to use Naruto, which I think they are, it'd make a lot more sense if there was guitar versus guitar in the acts," she says, as Trent started thinking about it, and apparently their conversation was being listened to as Heather turns to them. "You're right on that. Trent, you're one of our acts, at least that's one act down," Heather says as Trent just shrugs his shoulders, agreeing to do it. They turn back to Owen, who finishes chugging his bottle of soda as he tosses the empty bottle away and takes in a deep breath before A to Z. He releases one massive burp while spelling out the entire alphabet during his burp. This shocks the ladies of the team, while Trent, Cody and Tyler and surprisingly Izzy all stood up and cheered for Owen, while the big man himself feels hyped from his performance. "Yes!" he shouts while pumps his fist in the air. Trent walks over to Owen and high-fives him. "That was excellent, man," Trent says, complimenting Owen, who smiles and puts his hands on his hips, while Heather scoffs. "Well, he can't do that in the contest." "That's disgusting," Heather says, reeling in from the disgust at what she just witnessed. "Do you know how strong it is to burp out the entire alphabet in one go?" Trent asks while putting his arm over Owen's shoulder as the big guy nods. "Yeah, and I can also toot Beethoven's Fifth," Owen says as he bends over and sticks his butt out to perform said toot, but the girls stop him. "No. Don't do it, Owen," the girls yell, not wanting to be in range for the tooting act. Having been disgusted enough for the day, Gwen stands up from the stairs, grabs her book, and starts walking away from the cabin, and Heather catches notice of this. "And just where are you going?" Heather asks while Gwen just kept walking. "Anywhere that's not here," Gwen says as she leaves with her book in tow. Heather narrows her eyes at the book for a bit before shaking her head and looking back to the others. "Anyone else has something they want to do?" Heather asks, and Tyler happily raises his hand. "I've got some skills with the yo-yo," Tyler says as he moves to the clearing to do his audition as he pulls out a red yo-yo from his pocket. With the base, behind their cabin. Time, till showtime, 7:23. 90, 91, 92, 93. Eva counts out while she was lifting a set of weights. She was bench pressing a barbell that had the total amount on the ends of it. The impressive thing about this was that she was doing it, with no one spotting her should something happen. "Whoa!" Bridget utters, her eyes wide while her mouth was open in stunned awe at this feat. "Yeah, I know," Courtney whispers to her, also in the same state of stunned awe as the surfer was as they watch Eva continue to do her reps. 98, 99, 100. Eva yells, finishing her count as she drops the barbell onto the weight rack. She sits up, pants slightly, and smirks as the others cheer. "Dang, Eva. You sure are strong to do that with no supporter," Sadie says while Katie nods, agreeing to her statement. "Yeah, I know," Eva says, panting. A towel suddenly appears beside her as she looks up and sees Dawn standing there, offering the towel to her. "Thanks, sunchild," she says, taking the towel and wrapping the sweat off her. Dawn nods. "No worries," Dawn says. "Okay, so Eva's Deadman's Deadlift, and the Besties Dancing Routine, we've only got one locked-in act and one candidate as the second act," Courtney says as she writes on her clipboard for the act and lists Eva's Deadman's Deadlift as a possible act. She looks up at the rest. "Anyone else wants to go?" she asks. Harold was going to say he wanted to go, but DJ cuts him off. "I've got something I want to try," DJ says with his hand raised before he walks over to the boys' side of the base cabin. "Just give me a sec to get changed," He says, and thankfully, the others didn't have to wait for too long as DJ comes back out, now wearing a white male's ballet uniform while holding a long pink ribbon, along with a boombox. The others couldn't help but be surprised by DJ's outfit. DJ places the boombox on a tree stump and presses the play button with it starting to play angelic music as the giant started to dance a ribbon dance with surprising grace and elegance for someone his size. He finishes his dance by jumping into a split on the floor as he smiles. The others clap their hands to DJ who stands and bows to them in response. Okay, I'll admit that was impressive. Eva says. Courtney nods and writes DJ down as another possible but strong candidate for an act. Alright then, who's next? She asks, looking at the rest, A/N, anyone else getting Mortal Kombat flashbacks from her saying, who's next? Or is it just me? Me. Bridget eagerly says, with her hand raised. I can stand on my hands for 20 minutes. Watch. She says before she quickly does a handstand, even taking a few steps. Okay, that'd be cute if you were a monkey. Plus, we don't even know if there'll be a time limit for each act. Courtney says. I think it's 10 minutes. I heard Heather asking Chris while we were coming back from the amphitheater. Dawn says and Courtney thanks her for the information. Still, I don't think it's what we're looking for. Next. Courtney yells. Bridget sighs and lands back on her feet and walks back to the others as Harold steps forward and stands in front of the team to do his audition. And just as he takes a deep breath. Next. Courtney cuts him off for taking too long as he just exhales deeply and walks back to the others with his head low. Duncan scoffs at this as he turns to the team's resident nature child. So, got any other talents we should know about Sunflower? Besides talking to animals and seeing people's mojo? Duncan asks. Dawn suddenly flinches and stiffens in place before she looks away from them. And no, I don't have any other talent. Dawn stutters, with a meek tone as everyone looks at her with raised eyebrows. You sure? Duncan asks, as Dawn just looks down and shyly nods. Why yes. Dawn stutters once again, closing her eyes. Just as Duncan was about to say something, Bridget places her hand on his shoulder and makes him turn to her. Duncan, stop antagonizing Dawn. If she doesn't want to do it, then we just have to respect her choice and move on. Besides, she looks uncomfortable just talking about it. Bridget says, looking at Dawn and seeing the state she was in. Duncan sees this too and sighs as he nods. Fine. Duncan says before turning to Dawn and giving her an apologetic look, sorry. He whispers as Dawn smiles and nods while silently thanking Bridget for the save. Okay, moving on. Does anyone else want to have a go? Courtney asks as Jeff raises his hand. Sure. I got some rad skills on the board. Jeff yells, he steps forward and pulls out a skateboard from out of thin air as he drops the board onto the ground and hops on it, performing an ollie with it before he started to shred the area. No one notices Dawn leaving the area and walking off into the forest for some reason. Confessional, Dawn. Dawn was sitting in the confessional, but not in her usual meditation style. She was sitting in a normal way but she was looking distorted over something. I can't show everyone my talent, I cannot, not after what happened back then with, I just, can't. Dawn mutters, looking down to the stall floor as she starts to shake. End confessional. With the gophers, at the clearing between the cabins. Time, till showtime, 6:52. We cut back to the screaming gophers to see what was going on with them as we see Heather in a ballerina's outfit, performing ballet dancing with classical music playing in the background thanks to a boombox for their own. Eventually, Heather finishes her performance with a curtsy bow and she smiles as everyone claps their hands. Thank you. Heather says, with her clearing her throat while sending a discreet glare over to Lindsay and Beth, who finally realize what they were supposed to do after Heather was done with her audition. Oh, I vote for Heather to be in the contest. Lindsay says as Beth eagerly nods. I second that. Beth says, and Heather places her hand on her chest. Guys, that's so sweet. Heather says, acting surprised right before ditching the act and going back to business. Okay, so I'm in, and Trent's in as well. Why doesn't everyone take 5 before we figure out who's our last act? She asks, and everyone started leaving the area to go and do something for their break. Beth leaves and Lindsay was about to do the same when Heather grabs her arm and stops her from leaving. I need you to do something. Can you keep a secret? She asks the bombshell. Oh my gosh, definitely. My little sister got diarrhea once while on a date and I had to bring her toilet paper because the restaurant she had her date at was all out. She was stuck in the bathroom crying from it and she made me swear to never tell anyone about it and to this day I haven't told a soul. Lindsay says, right before she looks at the camera filming them and realizes that she not only just told Heather about that secret but she also told pretty much everyone across the globe watching. Oh, oops, sorry Paula. She apologizes, while sheepishly waving to the camera while looking ashamed of telling the secret. Heather then shoves a walkie-talkie to her as Lindsay takes it. Gwen's up to something serious. I want you to look for her and when you do, report back to me on what you find. Heather says, holding a walkie-talkie of her own before she pushes Lindsay in the direction Gwen had walked off. Oh okay. Lindsay yells, walking away as Heather just smirks. With Lindsay, somewhere in the forest. Time, till showtime, 6:48. Lindsay was peeking from behind a tree, using a pair of binoculars as she scans the area in search of Gwen. She sees a squirrel engaged in a fistfight with a seagull over a nut, then sees Tyler who was waddling away while he was tied up with string from his yo-yo. This was a result of his failure in his audition with his yo-yo tricks. Lindsay sighs. This is something serious. Yeah, seriously boring. I can't find Gwen anywhere. Lindsay says. She sighs again and looks around for Gwen but spots something else. She spots Naruto talking to Chris, but I did find a hunk. She says as she smiles. She sees the two talk a bit before seeing Chris starts grinning and laughing before he nods his head and shakes Naruto's hand before the two go their separate ways. I wonder what Nate was talking to Clyde about. She wonders, not noticing someone appearing behind her. That's the question of the hour. This person says, causing Lindsay to get startled. Eep. Lindsay screams as she jumps, dropping the binoculars and walkie-talkie down to the ground. She turns around to see who was it that was behind her and sees Dawn standing there. Oh. Hi Dee Dee. She greets the petite girl who nods at her. Hello, Lindsay. What are you doing? Dawn asks. She knows the blonde had trouble with remembering names but felt eventually, she'll remember them better. Lindsay started to look a bit nervous about the question as she looks around for something to use as an excuse and sees the binoculars on the floor. Oh, nothing. Just, taking out these binoculars. Lindsay says, picking the binoculars up and smiles nervously as Dawn just looks at her with a smile for her own. Are you sure? Or are you looking for Gwen to spy on her? Dawn asks. This makes Lindsay's eyes widen. How did you? Lindsay asks. I can see it in your aura. Heather told you to spy on Gwen to see just where is she hiding? Dawn asks and Lindsay just sighs and looks down. Yeah, she told me to spy on Grace but. Lindsay says but Dawn sees her aura change and saw why it did. But you don't want to? Dawn asks and Lindsay nod. Yeah, I'd rather look for Nate and ask him if he's going to be in the contest. Lindsay says. Dawn knew just who she was referring to. Naruto is in the contest and he'll be performing one of his songs. At least, that's what he told us before he left to practice. Dawn says, correcting Lindsay on the incorrect name she called Naruto as Lindsay looks at her. Really? Lindsay asks and Dawn just nods. Oh, what do you think he'll sing? A love song? Or something new? She asks while Dawn just shrugs her shoulders. I don't know to be honest. If you want to know what he's going to sing, you could ask him. I sense he's going to where Gwen is right now. Dawn says. Lindsay nods. Oh, then let's go and ask him. Lindsay says as she grabs Dawn's hand, making the petite girl look at her in confusion. I beg your pardon dash. Dawn was asking before she started getting dragged before Lindsay as the blonde started walking in the direction Naruto went. Back at the tree, the blonde was hiding. The walkie-talkie Lindsay had dropped when Dawn scared her goes off and Heather's voice goes through it. Lindsay. Lindsay. Come in. Did you find Gwen yet? Lindsay. Lindsay, where are you? Lindsay. Heather yells, wondering why Lindsay wasn't responding as the squirrel from earlier comes over and takes the walkie-talkie. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 4. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Pixel's fanbook on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.